from Marianna. Thank you for taking the time to share some information about infant first aid. Would you mind introducing yourself and your business?
Thanks for having me here first. Hi everyone, I'm Marianna. I'm from a company called Growth Training Group. We specialise in first aid and we do a lot of work around helping parents navigate this area of first aid and giving them some great life skills about, just in case something happens, they've got some skills to manage it.
So what can parents expect from your training? Is it an all-day course, or how long does it go for?
As a parent, we don't have a lot of time, so we haven't got all day to go to a workshop. So we run our workshops over 2 hours. We are family friendly. We really encourage partners to come, and it's a 2-hour hands-on. I call it a workshop, and we cover the things that I think are really important around first aid. So everyone thinks it's CPR, and CPR is important, but there's, you know, as kids do their milestones, they go from, rolling, like I try and bring in what they could expect to see. And I try and look at, from a first aid perspective, not only the first aid, but the prevention, right? So we talk about if it happens, but how can we stop it from happening, and why does it happen? Like, it's not because we're bad parents. It's because kids just are curious little beings, and just get into stuff. And because you've got the big message for me is you're looking at your child from your perspective. I'm trying to get you to put on a different filter and look at the world from their perspective. So the things that are dangerous to us is not dangerous to them. They're just curious little beings. We want to encourage that, right? We want to encourage that curiosity, but just want to do it in a really safe environment. But if something was to go wrong, then, what do we need to do? What's the action plan that we need to put into place?
So it's not just for major incidents. It's not only CPR, but it's also for prevention.
I think that first aid's a life skill, right? And that it's important that some of the steps that you need to take. And really, when we talk, one of the things we talk about in first aid is doctors ABCD, right? I think that's your roadmap to dealing with the situation, right? Danger, where's the danger, the response, like, is the person responding? That should happen that should almost be your roadmap for everything, okay? And if they're not responding, how do we send for help? Right? What sort of send for help? Send for help doesn't necessarily always mean 000. So you don't have to be accredited to know first aid. It's just a life skill, and that's the misconception that I think that's out there in the community, and people get really caught up with is, no, this is a life skill. Let's change the dialogue and say this is just giving you some skills and some knowledge, so in the event that something happens, you know exactly what to do.
So what are some of the topics that you cover in your training?
We cover CPR, we cover choking, we cover falls, okay? So we talk about there's never a good bump, right? But good bumps and bad bumps to distinguish the difference. We do how to identify allergic reactions. We briefly talk about asthma. It's probably a little bit early to be talking, but just to give them some comfort around in the event that something happens. We cover burns, which is a really big one, okay? Leading cause of burns in children is hot drinks. So I say to them, babies and coffee do not mix. All right? You either hold the baby or you have a coffee. The two shall never cross, right? We do drowning, okay? But drowning not only from a pool safety perspective, okay? Drowning inside the home. And we talk to them about, again, context, right? So it's probably the only freaky thing we do is we do the whole, how much water does it take for a toddler to drown in? And we've got the message around, you know, not leaving children unattended in the bathroom, right, while having a bath. But there's other dangers within the home that could be just as dangerous. And we see from you know, the reports of where children are drowning, and it really only takes 20 seconds and this much water for an incident to happen. So what I try and highlight is, for example, one of the exercises that we do is I sort of go, put your thumb to your chin and your nose, right? So as an adult, that's how much water you could potentially drown in, right, for 20 seconds. So then if you have a child, it's significantly small. And then I ask them, not to freak them out, and that's important, I ask them, where in your house would you have this much water? Where would you in the house? And then, you know, you get them thinking, pet bowls, okay, buckets in laundries, puddles, right? Now, it's not that we don't want our kids to experience that, like, you know, be jumping in puddles, because that's like that's something that all kids need to do, right? But what we're trying to do is just highlight, because I have a philosophy that if I show you and educate you where to see the dangers, it's actually part of the prevention. So this course, while it's about the first aid, what to do, I'm hoping the message is more around how to avoid these things. And I call it the red car syndrome. You wanted a red car when you were 18 because no one had one, and as soon as you bought one, everyone had a red car. If I can highlight to you, you know, poisonous, you know, what to do in like if they ingest a poisonous plant, and what to look for, then you're going to have a heightened sense of understanding what's in your environment. So yes, it's first aid, but it's actually about prevention and safety within the home.
Fantastic. So it's a little bit more about being aware rather than alarmed.
Correct. I like that. I'll be stealing that. Thank you.
Thank you. But that's so much more than I thought a first aid course would be, to have all of those home safety issues. Do you do anything that's outside of home safety?
So we do things like a little bit on car safety. We do a little bit on car safety. We give them some tips around if they're out and about. So things like really simple is in your pram. If you do a lot of walking, in your pram, always have a small first aid kit. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be the big, you know, it just needs to have some essentials in there. We always recommend that they download the Emergency Plus app on their phones. Now, do you know what, Justine, do you know what the Emergency Plus app is?
No.
Or can I share it with your audience? Okay, so it's a free app. Okay, it's called Emergency Plus. You download it onto your phone. But the beauty of it is when you engage it, when you call emergency services from that app, right, it does a couple of things, right? So it actually pinpoints where you are. Okay, so here's a scenario. We all go down to our local park, do we not? But we actually don't know the address of the park, right? So the app gives you your exact location, and it's got this little, I think it's called three words, okay? And so they'll say, what's the 3 words on the app? And it could be bucket, house, flower. And what it actually gives is the emergency responders, actually gives them your longitude and latitude of exactly where you are. So in a really big park, they will find you. Now, the first principle of the whole principle of first aid is to provide care, right, to stop the injury from getting worse and to get professional help. The sooner you call 000, right, the quicker you're going to get them to the incident. All right. So the emergency app is something that it's free. It's across Australia. It will find you. And it then, you know, you've got, I call phone a friend, phone a friend. So they'll be there and they'll stay with you through the whole thing, or when it's safe to leave you, they will leave you. So, you know, it's great. It's great resources. And then we spend a little bit of time talking about 000, right? Because, you know, you've got to appreciate that when you ring 000, it's like triage, right? So they will prioritise your incident based on what else is happening around them. And I can assure you that a non-breathing child, a drowning child, you go to the top of the list. So if there's some 18-year-old who's broken their ankle, you get prioritised over that, all right? Because non-breathing in children is paramount because just of their size of their bodies. They don't carry as much oxygen as we do. So we cover about 12 topics, really, like, quickly, but enough information that we don't alarm them, but we educate. So yeah, so there's a lot of information.
Oh, wow, thank you for telling us about that app. It's something I hadn't heard of. It sounds like it would be really valuable for people, maybe if they're on holiday and weren't familiar with their area they were in. But also I can imagine for parents, if you were somewhere that you maybe were familiar with, it would be easy to panic faced with an emergency situation.
You know what we teach parents? The first thing about first aid, right? Stop, ground yourself, breathe. Okay? That will calm you down, right? So, you know, just that technique is once you stop and just take a breath, it's like a reset, and then you go straight into what you need to do. Our brains are amazing. They retain really valuable information. We just want to make sure you've got the right information.
So what's something you find yourself sharing that is perhaps an unexpected takeaway that parents have from one of your workshops?
I think the underlying thing is what's an emergency and what's not an emergency, right? And the biggest tip I give the parents is you know your child the best, okay? So if, for example, with falls, right, if he's had a fall and he goes back or she goes back to doing what they were doing, right, then it's fine, okay, assuming that you've got no bleeding and things like that. But if you see a change in behaviour, something's wrong. And the carers know their children better. So, and my best tip is follow your instinct, because you actually know, and you know what's normal for your child and what's not normal, right? So one of the tips when we talk about falls is, if you're not sure, like, definitely don't put them to sleep, right, and give them a rest. Get them engaged with an activity that you actually know they know how to do really well, okay? So if it's singing a song or they know their colours, right, do that as a way to just check that they don't have a concussion, or you know, that they're not as alert. If they're that bubbly child that runs around like there's no tomorrow, and then is very placid, that's a change of behaviour, right? So, and children are different, and the only person that knows the parent, the child, is the parent and the carers around them.
Love that strategy. I know when one of mine had a fall when they were little, it just came before bedtime. And the only thing in my mind was, you're supposed to not let them go to sleep. And it was the only thing they wanted to do. But to have the strategies for what to do instead, I think would have been really nice for me to know.
Yeah, like, just play with them. You know, like, you know, I know we all want to get to bed, but we just want to make sure that they're safe. That's all. Yeah.
What are those most common questions that parents ask?
The biggest question we get at any session is around choking, right? And my job there is to teach you techniques if they're choking, but actually to understand the difference between choking and gagging and putting, and can I give an example? Is that okay? So the example is when you've got to, again, from a child's perspective, for months they've been having beautiful, soft milk in their mouth, okay? It's soft, it's beautiful, it's like fluid. All of a sudden, you put in there something that's weird, okay? So their natural response is going to be to gag, right? So they're going to go, like they're going to literally. So parents get panicky to say, hang on, is that the baby choking? Or is that the baby, you know, what is it? So I just try and create it from a perspective of what's happening to the child and what's happening to the child, and just to distinguish the two, and then to give them some tips about, you know, some of the things to prevent choking, right? Because we're all busy parents, right? And sometimes a good intention potentially can lead to an incident, right? So things like when they're eating, we don't want them walking around the house. Like, we don't want them walking around the house with a crusket or a biscuit or something like that, because they're not good walkers at that stage. So they're more likely to tumble. If they tumble and they've got food in their mouth, they could choke. And like your maternal health nurses, which are an amazing resource, they will talk to the parents about, you know, techniques and what sort of foods to introduce and all that sort of stuff. And then everyone's always afraid that their child's going to be allergic to something. Like, you know, what if they're allergic to what I give them? Okay, so let's help them identify what an allergic reaction is, or just, you know, when should I be concerned? So we don't want to scare them. We just want to inform them to say they might get a little bit rosy cheeks when they first have, I don't know, could be anything, right? Because you don't know until they have a reaction that they're allergic to it. So what's the difference with something being, you know, their face is getting a little bit of a rash, or not even rash, just rosy cheeks, or they get a bit flush, to actually have an allergic reaction. And then what do you need to do? Because you actually don't have you don't have enough time, you don't have a lot of time to do something. So you need to know that instinct really needs to kick in, and you know, need what to do, who to call, all those sorts of things. And that's really, you know, this is not everything is let's rush to the emergency department. And then we try and give them a whole list of resources that they can contact, right? So if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they're going, I don't know what's going on with this child, who can I call, right? So that's part of this process, is to give them confidence and to give them resources that they're able to tap into if they, you know, because the last place I want people to get advice from is Facebook.
Absolutely. I find people giving such random advice on Facebook. And I think it's something I've noticed as a midwife over the years, that sometimes I have to ask families to sidestep maybe some advice from older generations. It may be outdated and possibly inaccurate as well. So what's one of those myths, one of those pieces of advice that people often get wrong?
You know, old myths about how you might, you know, we talk about burns, right? And people go, do I put Vaseline, butter, you know, a vinegar? Like, what is it? No, it's just cool running water for 20 minutes, okay? Right? Just really practical, really simple stuff without all the technical stuff, right? Pick up your child, stand in the shower, get someone else to call emergency services if it's depending on the size of the burn. That's all we need you to do, okay? A wet parent and a wet child, like, is the first aid, right? That's the tips that we want to provide.
So Marianna, who's the course aimed for? Is it just for new parents?
So we don't call it, you know, children's first aid, or we call it family, or it should be called village maybe. So whoever is in your village, right? So whether it's a grandparent, an aunt, a babysitter, a grandmother, whoever, the neighbour, right? like, isn't it worth them having this, it's about how you can leave them in their care knowing they've got some basics, right? So in the event that something's not there, right, because you were not there, they have the skill set to do and know what to do, right? Even if they do 5% of what we teach them, it's better than no percent. And think of the long-term impact, right? So how that person would feel because they weren't able to assist, right? They didn't know what to do. So that will be with them post the incident. And for the parent, right, or the carer, that they weren't there. So it's not the physical, it's also the emotional and the psychological impact of it. Again, we say at the beginning, right, I hope you never have to use any of this, okay? And in a large percentage of people, they'll never have to use it, okay? But if they do, they have the skill set. It's really...
It sounds like they'd be less likely to use it because of the education around the prevention rather than needing it in an emergency situation as well.
Correct. That's exactly, like, prevention and cure sort of work together. And sometimes we don't know, like, we don't know what we don't know. Okay. So, like, you know, even little things like, when you're using your pram, right? We always say use the tether strap that's attached to it, because at least you're always attached to your pram, okay? Try not do mobile phone, coffee and pram at the same time. It doesn't work, right? Because, if you trip or spill or answer the phone, you'll get distracted. So just those little things. But if something was to happen, you've got some, you know what to do.
Would you recommend parents do the course before their baby arrives?
I sort of think it's actually like before, like my take on before the baby comes is, yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't create context until the baby arrives, right? It's like you're more inquisitive and you want to know more because you're actually holding this baby and you've started to see some things and you go, what would I do in that scenario? So before baby, you don't know what you don't know. Post baby, you sort of know what you don't know. So you now have got more questions about what if, and everyone's always got a story to share. And I think it's important that people are allowed to share in what they've encountered.
Fantastic. So in what age group then do you think is a good age? Is it kind of like first month or when they're starting to move a bit?
Yeah, when they're starting to move, right? So so I'm sort of saying that pre-roll that pre-roll to in between crawling, because that's when they're exploring more.
So is it better to leave the baby at home when you attend a workshop?
So it's family friendly. We love kids coming because then the parents are present, right? Rather than having to worry about, what's happening at home. So we don't mind. I tend to put them to sleep. So that could be a bonus. We make it family friendly. 2 hours is as much as parents can allocate, and we do it with other parents. So
it's really good to know. I'm wondering how you came to be in this role. What led you here?
I'm a mother of twins. My twins are a little bit older now. They're 19, so I got them to 19, which is great. And I started this journey in the area of first aid, probably now, particularly around parents, about probably 6 or 7 years ago. I was doing some work with another organisation, and one of the common factors that I saw in this space was that parents really wanted some information that was practical to their situation. Okay, so first-time parents, second-time parents, grandparents taking care of grandkids, because that's part of that village. And I was working with a couple of organisations, and I decided that we needed something that was suitable for parents, and in an environment that allowed them to be really safe to have those conversations and ask those what they think are silly questions, which are never silly questions, right? And so that's where this journey sort of started. And it was a bit of a passion project for me. So it was something like, I want everyone to learn first aid. So I think that first aid's a life skill. And in particular, the thing about first aid is I think that people panic because they don't know. So I'm hoping that I pass on some information that the brain goes, I'll put that information away for a rainy day, and I hope you never have to use it. But as soon as something happens, I want you to use it. It'll come to you and you go, oh, I remember what that annoying Marianna told me, or one of my trainers told me about this. I know what to do. And like, even if you get 5% right, it's better than no percent. So that's where this journey sort of started. I think parenting can be a bit daunting, and just give them, it's just a life skill. It's just a life skill. So yeah.
It's really clear that you have a passion for this. I wonder what it is that you particularly love about your role.
I love educating parents. I really do. Like, you know, my kids are much older, and I just remember how scary it was being a first-time mum, and the baby didn't come with a manual. I'm still waiting for the manual to pop out, right? So it hasn't, and I just see the looks on their faces from when they come in to when they leave. It's like, you know, they relax. You know, they come in quite tense, and they walk out going, you know what, I've got this, right? I've got this, right? And I think that for me is the reason I do it, because I just go, you know what, as parents we juggle so much, and I'm just hoping this little bit of information just might allow them to, you know, enjoy the moment, because we're so worried about, you know, are we going to break our kids, right? We're not going to break our kids, right? And accidents are accidents, right? Like, it's not intentional injury. These are accidents because we give birth to amazing children who are super smart, and sometimes I think they're smarter than us, and they get into stuff that you just go, why? Like, so the reason I do it is because I was that parent that went, why? Oh. Yeah.
So have you heard back from parents to say that they've used something that they've learned in one of your workshops?
We've got a ton of stories. We've got a ton of stories. I think we've had a couple of stories around choking, right? Like, it just, the thing that they said was, there was a couple that I saw at another session, and they said, you know what, it just your voice came into my head, and I don't know if I did it right or wrong, but whatever it did, it worked on the day, and that was really good. And feedback was around, you know, we talk about button batteries. So they all went home. I tell them to clean out their junk drawer. You know, they clean out their junk drawer. So, and because people don't know what they've got in their junk drawer. So I tell you to clean out. Right. So we talk about button batteries, and they said that they'd heard about button batteries, but they hadn't connected the dots. And then when they went home, they connected the dots. And as soon as they started to see the little one sucking on the remote control, they got it, right? There's a battery in there. So there's great stories. There's great stories. So yeah, so it's not the big things, it's all the little stories that you hear. Yeah.
So thank you for giving us an insight into the world of first aid training. We've reached the stage in the conversation that I ask all of our experts about some of the parenting tips, some advice that they could give from their perspective, either as a parent or from working with so many parents of new babies. I think being the mother of twins, you are kind of super skilled in this area. What is your top parenting tip that you have for expectant or new parents?
Enjoy the moment. There's no manual, right? There's no manual, and enjoy the present. Okay, celebrate the little wins, the quirkiness of our kids. That's my advice: is be present, because I wonder sometimes if I wasn't present. So yeah, be present. Enjoy the little things as much as they drive you insane. We do love them. So that's my parenting tip: be present.
What is something that you'd love every new mum to know?
The other piece is follow your gut. Like if something's amiss, then something's amiss. Okay. So
What about dads? What would you love every new dad to know?
we have a lot of dads that come to our sessions, and they are just as engaged and wanting this information than their partners. Okay, so I wish dads knew. I want dads to know that they're part of the journey, and they make such an impact in being on the same page. Can you imagine in an instant you've got two people who know exactly what to do is so powerful. So I think that's my message is, if you think you're being dragged to something, you're not. You're going to walk away with a different perspective on a whole bunch of stuff. So
was there a time that you remember emerging from the newborn bubble? Maybe when you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Was there a specific day or time?
6 weeks to the day. 6 weeks to the day. I don't know, my first 6 weeks, I can't remember, but the best advice, I've got the best advice. The best advice was just hang on for those first 6 weeks, because that's probably the best advice I was ever given.
Is there one item that you would consider to be invaluable for new parents to have?
I had a little first aid kit in my pram, had one in the car, and I have one at home, and everyone knows where the first aid kit is. Okay, like I know you're thinking that it's my space, but in an emergency, everyone needs to know, right? Everyone needs to know where that first aid kit is. Okay, that's my advice.
Is there one product or service or one item that you think is overrated, that people rave about and you never used it, or you just don't think it's necessary?
I don't know. There's a lot of products out there for children. You don't need them. Okay, keep it simple, uncomplicate your life. And there's a lot of stuff, and they're only for little people. They seem to need a lot of stuff, and really they don't.
Thinking of the environment, is there one way that parents can reduce waste or perhaps buy more ethically?
Don't go buy a capsule. Like, you only need them for 6 months. And even though you're going to store it for the next one, who knows what the next one will be in a couple of years when you have your next child. So, if the baby doesn't need it for a long period of time, just buying it is a waste of resources, right? You can do it differently. Use your village, right? Use your village, right? How many clothes does a newborn really need? A little one. So obviously, we obviously don't want our kids to miss out on, but use your village, reuse the resources within your village, whether it's clothing, it's equipment, always check the safety of it, right? You just don't have to buy it. You've got so many options. You can hire things that the babies grow out of really quickly. You've got friends who use similar products, have got children in different stages. Let's be good to the environment, right? Because, it all ends up in landfill. So, keep it simple. My message is keep it simple.
Thank you for sharing your tips. Is there something, if parents were looking for a first aid course, is there something that they should be looking out for? What questions should they be asking?
Yeah, I think the really important piece is it's about the facilitator. There are a number of great providers out there. But really, what training or what background does the facilitator bring to the table? Is it from a early childhood perspective, so they understand the audience? Our audience is children, okay? Our audience is, we're trying to keep our kids safe. So we really want to understand what experience they bring to the table in that regard. So how they can apply it to being a first-time mum with, or second-time mum or third-time mum, you know, and applying these skills, right? Just being an accredited first aid trainer doesn't necessarily, it's not a negative and it's not a positive. But if they're training workplaces, they're not going to understand that our kids are our kids, and sometimes they do stuff without us, none of us ever understanding why, right? So you want that relatability and being able to answer those questions that that pertain to being a parent. And I think that's the really thing. And obviously the dynamics of it, you know, if they're really big classes, and I understand why people run really big classes, am I going to be able to ask my question? You don't want to go to a group that there's 100 people there. A good workshop should have 10 to 15 people maximum. So you have the ability, right? You have an ability to ask those questions that are important to you, right? I think they should be family friendly. So you should have the ability to bring your child, right? That's the reason you're doing this, right? A lot of councils offer it. So I think talk to your maternal health nurse. They're probably a best resource.
It's great to know. Thank you. So you've taken the time to be here today. So I wonder if it's a good time to talk about your business. What is it that you think is a standout about the training that you offer?
Look, my role today is I just want people to learn first aid, okay? First aid, whether it's accredited or not accredited, okay? Because I think it's a life skill. At Growth Training Group, it's really about, getting together people, let's say like-minded about this topic. So if you've got we'll come out to a group of 4 or 6 people and run this workshop. And I think we're more flexible than potentially some of the bigger organisations because our approach is, I wish I could do it for free as a life skill, but you can always reach out to us, and if we're running it at councils, we'll try and get you the best solution for you. So it's whether it's your mother's group. I just want to teach parents first aid from prevention and what to do in an event. So the more opportunity I get to do that, I think that potentially I'm out there saving lives. So that will be, so we're so Growth, I think we're probably a little bit more intimate because we sort of will tailor it, and we're probably a little bit more flexible, but there's some great organisations out there. So just learn first aid. Doesn't have to be through us. Just learn it and I'll be happy, because then that means this message has gone out to parents to take action and, take the steps that they need. Come online, whatever works for you, we're there to provide a service.
So you're based in Victoria. What areas do you service?
So I've got trainers and facilitators that cover Geelong, Narre Warren, northern suburbs, western suburbs, and so literally I've got trainers across the 4 quadrants of Victoria and Geelong, Ballarat, but we're happy to travel. If it's a larger group, we're happy to travel to regional centres. I think that if there's regional groups that need us to go out and pass on this knowledge, more than happy to facilitate that. And maybe we can talk to council about them putting it on for you. We can deliver these online, right? And we do run these online on a monthly basis. And again, that's so that, you know, sometimes you can't get to a physical session, then the ability to run it online is an
I know
option.
when my kids were at kinder, I was, with my nursing background, I hadn't done a first aid course, but it was something the kinder offered as a fundraiser.
If your kids are in childcare, talk to the other parents, and we can organise to go out to a childcare centre. We do a lot of childcare training, and we run this really cute program for the little ones. So we run a little bit, you know, for the 5-year-olds about, you know, their first introduction to first aid. It's okay, we're not expecting them to do CPR on us, but like just having the language with your kids around, you know, just even teaching them, you know, to ring 000. How many kids have saved their parents because they knew what to do just by ringing 000? Okay, so, you know, anything we can pass on is I think part of the journey of that we're on.
So is incorporating the child into a normal adult session, or is that a separate?
Oh no, that's a separate training we do. So we just teach the kindergarten kids just around some basic, you know, just a little bit of basics around, you know, 000. A little bit the same message, you know, prevention and educate. So we talk about, you know, poisons and staying away from poisons, but then we talk to, obviously, you know, always, if something happens, talk to a trusted adult about what's happened. Don't be afraid not to say, hey, I went and drank some bleach and it didn't taste good, right? Or we want people to have we want to have those conversations with the kids, right? So just to empower them. Like, you never know, we just might save a child out there.
Amazing service, really valuable, I think. Are you happy to talk about how much your courses cost?
Our prices start from about $120 per person or per couple. And then if you get a group of, say, 8 together, as a group, it costs you around $285. So you can split that up amongst the 8. I think it works out to about $40, $50 per person. And then groups up to 15, I don't like to run bigger groups than 15. We're looking at $450. So, you know, the more people you have, obviously the cheaper it gets. But, you know, the average is between 6 and 8 participants. You're looking at about $285, which makes it really cost. And you get to pick the time and location as long as the facilitators are available. You can pick the location. So it could be someone's home, it could be at a cafe, it can be at a community centre, part of your mother's group. You know, as I said, you know, we're trying to make this affordable for families out in the community.
So there's lots of potential options. Marianna, tell us about how people can contact you and find out more information.
So we're online. We're at growthtraininggroup.com.au. Just put family first aid, and it will come up with either you want to come to a public session or organise a private session, or our email is hello@growthtraininggroup.com.au. You're most welcome to reach out if you think it's a silly question. I'm more than happy to answer it, because it's not a silly question, and if I can pass on some knowledge to you, absolutely, or point you in the right direction, that would be amazing.
Can't thank you enough for being so generous with your time and sharing so many tips and insights. I know that I've learned a lot. I'm sure parents are much more likely to consider attending a first aid workshop now, and who knows, perhaps saving a life as a result. Thank you for your time.